All right, welcome everybody to the Jim Acosta Show, where it's an embarrassment of riches in terms of guests. Today we have the star of White Lotus and the political thriller Words of War, Jason Isaacs. Jason, of course, played Timothy Ratliff, the spiraling, pill-popping, and occasionally pantsless dad in season 3 of White Lotus. He was also, of course, Lucius Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies. He's here to talk about Words of War, which is a completely different project. Jason, great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
No, it's a pleasure. And it's I see that sign behind you, as your audience will see, Jim Acosta and a free press. And that's what this film is about. And we're talking on a day, I don't know when people watch this, where it's never more appropriate to talk about that, because an executive order just came from the White House to cancel all funding for public media for an independent free press.
That's right. And I do want to talk to you about it, but since you mentioned it, you're absolutely right. I mean, the arts are under attack here in Washington. The AP is reporting this morning Trump signed an executive order aiming to slash public subsidies to PBS and NPR as he alleged bias in their reporting. The order instructs the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, other federal agencies to, quote, cease federal funding for NPR and PBS. I mean, Jason, you
the only services that are telling the truth to people,
exactly,
free from commercial constraints.
That's right.
Free from owners, well, and free from
we
the
do a
need to
little
make
of that
money.
here, but
right.
But you're absolutely. I mean, you're in Britain. We were just talking about this before we got going. In Great Britain, you have the BBC, you have public broadcasting. It's what's expected by the citizens.
Sure. I mean, look, it's not that the BBC is perfect by any means. There's all kinds of question marks over it and what it does with its money and what its own political biases are. But there's, just not to be too cheesy and get back on the soapbox, but the film is about a remarkable woman, an ordinary woman. She was a human interest journalist who was sent to a war zone to try and pick a couple of human interest stories. Her name's Anna Politkovskaya in Russia in the early 2000s. And she discovered that the country had been lied to. That Putin had lied, actually ended up he started using the same playbook he used in Ukraine years later, pretended they were invading a country that had full of fascists, didn't tell the Russian population what was being done in their name. She discovered mass graves, evidence of mass rape, torture, starvation, all the rest of it. And she started to tell the public because she was working for one of the very few independent free media outlets in Russia. And in the end, she lost her life for it. They poisoned her at first, and she was relentless, no matter that it destroyed her marriage and her relationship with her kids and stuff. And she just could not stop herself bearing witness because it was too important. And I was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last weekend. I don't know if you were there also. And the president was very notable by his absence. I've been there when President Obama was there, when President Biden were there. And they were very clear when they gave the speeches to the assembled journalists that as much as they hated having their feet held to the flame, as much as they really were, very worried by the people in the room and what they did to them and made discomforted, it was the central pillar of a free democracy in the West that we should have free press and they should have access. Of course, AP that you just mentioned does not have access to the White House anymore.
That's right. No,
and that's one of the measures of a slide from democracy into autocracy is access and the ability to broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, I skipped the Correspondents' Dinner this past weekend. I mean, I had other plans, I'll put it that way, but I was also not happy that the Correspondents' Dinner was happening, in the fashion that it was, because when
you missed something, I have to say. Yeah. Journalism became center stage. The other years that I've been there, what television shows is the comedy speech and the president being funny and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Actually, it meant that powerful, important, independent journalism was what the evening was about, and only that.
Well, that's good.
Very fabulous speech by Eugene Daniels at the end. He said, we don't invite the president here for entertainment. We don't invite him here because we want to bow down to them. We invite them here to see what the First Amendment is all about.
Yeah.
And we are not the enemy of the people, and we are not the enemy of the state. And they are the central, you journalists who get to speak the truth to power and to the rest of us are the central pillar of what keeps us free in the world.
Yeah, well, and the movie is important because it is about the murder of the Russian journalist Anna Politkovskaya. And let's show a clip of that and talk about it.
Okay.
Did you know that the war between Russia and Chechnya is the longest ongoing conflict in the world?
Now, the Kremlin wants the world to believe that Russia is waging a war against terrorists. Its real purpose is a dedicated campaign of genocide.
I'm in a ditch.
I'm a journalist. The tactics employed by the Kremlin is itself creating a wave of violence that has never been experienced. Oh my God.
The war's come home.
People are killing each other. You get in the middle and you're dead too.
Chechny's your baby, while this newspaper is mine.
There is nothing of value apart from the truth. And I do not intend to stop.
Looks incredible, Jason. I mean, and you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, this is a cautionary tale. We were talking about this with Sean Penn and Eric
Swalwell's come out. But Sean and
Yeah.
Eric Swalwell came on board when they saw the film because, you know, Eric championed the bill that didn't pass eventually in Congress for protection of journalists and protection of the press. And Sean has long been a champion of that. And so they came on board. And we're doing Q&As, in fact, all weekend, cinemas in New York and Los Angeles to try and, you know, generate interest.
Yeah, and it shows what happens when the government can crush the press, and that's what took place in Russia. And people think, oh, it's always been this way. I mean, there was that glimpse, that period during Boris Yeltsin where things were opening up. You and I are old enough to remember that. It wasn't a perfect democracy or anything like that, but there was hope for Russia. And then Putin came in and slammed the door shut on it. And this
it's
was
not just look. People, many journalists get killed in Russia and around the world in the last year, more than ever. They're also put on trial. They're also sued. Carol Cadwallader in England was sued, not just the Guardian newspaper. She personally had to raise her own war chest to fight that. But there's self-censorship. Certainly commercial organizations, the people who are not fun, NPR and PBS, you know, the people, you saw the people getting rid of their own DEI departments when they weren't under mandate, for instance, for the White House. You know, people are aware of who's in, what the cultural tide is around them, and they don't want to say things to stick out. I was advised, for instance, to clear all my social media accounts. And I know that's what a lot of people are being told who have been in any way outspoken politically previously. And it's that atmosphere of self-censorship and fear which is as dangerous.
Yeah. Isn't there something wrong with that? It's a little scary.
It's a little scary. You know, it's terrifying that things like that should matter. When I work in America all the time, I pay taxes in America, my daughter's American, and, you know, I love this country, many of the things this country stands for and has stood for. But I'm told, you know, you really shouldn't be outspoken at all about politics because you might not get a working visa. Well, you know, I remember this is going back a long time. I remember being in 2003, I think, in a hotel somewhere, and there were a bunch of lobbyists, Washington lobbyists. And they said, are you going back to America or England? I said, I'm going back to England, and I'm quite looking forward to it because, you know, we're about to invade Iraq again. And I feel like I want to be around a healthy debate. I want to hear all sides of everything. They went, I don't agree. And I went, sorry, what do you mean? And they said, and this was two very smart young women who are political lobbyists in Washington. During the war, I just think you should absolutely support your side and support the troops. And I went, during a war is the time when it's most important to discuss what you're doing, why your young men and some women are being killed and putting their lives on, and why they're killing other people, often in larger numbers. That's the very time they go to completely disagree. Well, that attitude you now see multiplied exponentially, that maybe you shouldn't speak out when there might be personal ramifications for you. And you know, these are difficult times when the fabric of what's kept the world at peace are being pulled apart. It's the very time that everything needs to be examined very closely because there are dire consequences for all of us, for AI and for world peace.
Yeah. And what can artists do in this moment, do you think, Jason? Because we're seeing Trump go after the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. They're going after funding for artists, libraries.
Well, the NEH is essentially gone. And I was lobbying in Washington last week for the National Endowment for the Arts. It does extraordinary things, actually, for the things the Republicans really care about. You know, preserving America's heritage, for treating veterans with PTSD, a whole bunch of community projects they would care about. But this is just a scythe and machete being cut through things. What can we do? Something. The answer is something. Doing nothing just makes you feel bad. If you do nothing and you read all the news all the time, you just feel depressed and scared. If you do something, whether it could be feeding your next door neighbor who nobody visits anymore, or it can be something on a local level, or it can be donating money, or it could just be phoning your representative and saying, I'm upset about this and I will be voting for this next time. Make your local representative aware of the things you care about, but do something. Don't do nothing and talk about it at dinner.
Yeah. And I do want to go back to the Correspondents' Dinner weekend because you were here. And as you said, you're a veteran going to these events in Washington. I hear you ran into the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. What was that like?
I did, actually, outside the White House. We'd been to the White House to listen. People were very receptive. The staffers we met were very receptive to our arguments about why the arts are important for the entire community, that they're not a politically divisive. It's an apolitical subject. And then I saw somewhere on a newspaper, I had been at the White House Correspondents' breakfast that Tammy Haddad holds every year that everybody goes to from across, right across the aisle. And I'd made a joke about White Lotus. So I was presenting and honoring these extraordinary firefighters who had, after the terrible aviation crash there. And I said, sometimes I get to play heroes, selfless heroes like these men here. And sometimes I get to play privileged, elitist, rich scumbags like nobody here today, obviously. Some very irresponsible journalist. Yeah, he got a laugh. I'm always looking for the cheap gag. Some terrible journalist somehow conflated that with, in the evening, me on the red carpet saying, I was here when Obama was here and here when Biden was here, Trump's not here, saying that I had called President Trump a scumbag. I didn't. I didn't do that because he's president of America and I wish him the best. I don't like the things he does very often, but he is the most powerful man in the free world. And I hope he does things for the benefit of all America and all the world. And it's rotten journalist because it actually has dire consequences for me, possibly professionally, possibly personally. Someone will think that, and people get very physical about these things. Journalists have a responsibility not to make up stuff, because I've been in the White Lotus in the last 2 months. I've done 1 billion interviews, and sometimes I said dumb things or try to be funny, and in print it doesn't look that funny. But a couple of times, mornings, I woke up and I would read an interview that was completely fictitious. Yeah. Like literally not someone I met, with things I have never and would never say. And people get killed for shit like that. So
I hear you.
It's been
We're
shocking.
Not doing that here. This is
no, you're not. But I'm saying I did meet the White House.
Thing.
I did meet the White House press secretary. I had called Sean Spicer Goebbels previously. I didn't call her that to her face. But I'm trying to be civil to
Lady
everyone.
Goebbels.
The worst thing you can do is shut down debate and shut down discussion. Just shout someone down, as I see happen often around the issue of the Middle East, for instance. And the most important thing we have in a democracy is the ability to discuss things, because you don't get that in other countries. Look what happened to Anna Politkovskaya.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And since you brought up White Lotus, I mean, I can't, not talk about this, the Thai elephant in the room, perhaps we'll put it that way. But
nice.
See, I got a cheap laugh too. There you go. We're old enough to tell the dad jokes and we can just go back and forth. But first of all, you're a Brit, but you play a guy from Duke, as Parker Posey would say.
From Durham, North Carolina. He's actually very, very specifically from Durham. Yeah.
How did you pull that off? I mean, and also the
I love an
popping
accent
of the lorazepam and the lorazepam.
Well, how do I pop the lorazepam off? I was a drug addict for a long time. That was easy. The truth is that I love an accent. I've had lots of different accents in my life. One of the reasons I'm an actor, I'm sure, just to play my own therapist and pop psychologist, is that when I was younger, I really wasn't sure who to be or how to be. I'm not sure I am now. And I would change who I was in every group, what they call code switching now. So I've had a bunch of different accents in my life. And I love it. So it's my way into a character. So Durham is a very interesting place. The blue-blooded Americans who can trace themselves back to the Mayflower there, they have a couple of vowel sounds that are hangovers from the colonial days. So they have a dipped on the O sound. People making fun of Parker all the time, going, Piper, no. That O sound is very English. And then the other sound is the O sound. So Americans say God. Americans say God, not God. And the certain type of people in Durham who want to sound like their grandfather, they say God, not, which is very English. And so when I was doing it, there were a bunch of people online going, this guy doesn't sound American at all. Sounds English or Australian. And it was frustrating because people from Durham were finding me all the time in person and online going, oh my God, you sound exactly like my dad.
Well, and there are all these Instagram videos.
Yeah,
there are all these Instagram videos. I'm sure you've seen some of them where they'll hand somebody, grandmother lines from White Lotus to see if they sound like Parker Posey or like you.
Nobody sounds like Parker Posey, to be fair. You'd have to get on one of Jeff Bezos's, Jupiter shots to find that. But she created a grotesquely brilliant comic persona, and you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who spoke like that, I think.
But apparently, the folks at Duke, if I can bring this, kill me if I should.
Furious! No, they're furious at me.
They're so pissed at you. What happened?
Yeah. Well, we were trying to work out what he would wear to bed. And I didn't want to wear pajamas. That's a bit corny. And I thought, well, I know a lot of people who still, decades afterwards, wear all their college stuff. And in fact, with the Ratliffs, I'm pretty sure there'd be a Ratliff library and a Ratliff wing at Duke. And, he'd have given money and stuff. And so I said, let's wear a Duke t-shirt. They got clearance. Of course they got clearance. You don't do stuff on TV without clearance. Yeah. And then when I was killing myself and killing my family, some person at Duke who wanted to see their name on the internet, whatever, went, we're really upset about the implication that, it's very irresponsible suicide. I want to go, dude, look at your alumni. There are some real life notorious people wearing Duke t-shirts. You should worry about that for you.
Stephen Miller went to Duke.
Well, I wasn't going to name him because I don't want to wake up and find him at my front door or any of his thugs. But yeah, him and others too. There are bigger things to worry about than a fictitious TV show. But I did, on the other hand, I was stuck at Charlotte Airport, and the only stuff that was available because my bags didn't come through was Duke merch. I bought one with the devils on it, that and I wore it, and then I got in trouble for that. Now people are giving me Duke T-shirts, and I'm going to wear it whenever I see a camera.
Good. Well, and it's a very Duke University thing to do, to go after you for wearing a Duke T-shirt. I mean, I just have to say,
I think I'm being blamed for them losing the game. That's what it is, and it's really not my fault. I wasn't there. I was busy at the finale premiere.
Cooper flag on line one. No,
but I think there goes my honorary degree from Duke that I was hoping for.
You'll have to hope for Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
But in the but White Lotus. I mean, you've done so many great roles over the years. I mean, including in Words of War, which looks terrific. But I mean, are you a little surprised that this blew up the way it did? The White Lotus.
The scale of it was shocking to me. My lovely kids in the show, Patrick, Sam, and Sarah Catherine, allowed me to patronize them or bring my Yoda-like wisdom to the table, whatever, around various different areas about being an actor, particularly slightly Buddhist in this, but about enjoying the moment and there never being a destination. It was all journey, and not to be thinking about what this might do for their career or not. No, maybe no one was going to watch it. And maybe it was going to come out the day after some terrible natural disaster or terrorist act, or who knew? So just to enjoy the fact we were in Thailand and we're making this extraordinary thing with these people that we like so much. But then it did actually blow up enormously. And I'm suddenly lost for words because I never seen anything like it. I'm in the Harry Potter films. They obviously were a global phenomenon, but I still had never seen anything like the kind of blue touch paper and spread like this the way.
And some of this is the social media, the way it spreads via social media, because Harry Potter had some of that, but I think just all the videos of you and Parker and the others on the cast.
It is, Jim, but I don't know. I mean, people were having watch parties. And people were actually talking about it at a water cooler. That notional thing. I studied law originally, and you would talk all the time about what does a reasonable man think. And they talked about the man on the Clapham omnibus. That was thought to be the average person. That's what judges referred to. Well, we talk about water cooler conversations, but they haven't really happened for decades. Not since Dynasty or Dallas or whatever. This was a water that genuinely people would gather and talk about it in offices. They would gather and one of the parts of the many areas of brilliance that Mike White doesn't get attention for. One is his directing. People talk about his writing all the time, but he creates an atmosphere of play and improvisation and madness, frankly, and anarchy that allows these things to be so human. But the other thing is that he knows how to write weekly television show. Now, you can binge it on Max. It's still great. But a week in between, like Dickens, who was serialized, allowed it time to marinate and percolate and people to be frustrated and all these nuts theories to come out all over the internet that people had, the monkeys did it, whatever. And then bizarrely, recently, people are desperately want to pick apart the actual relationships between the actors as if they're in any way as interesting as the world that Mike created. We're just a bunch of boring gits. Who cares what we did on holiday,
No, and the Dallas analogy is so good because Who Shot JR? I mean, that was a phenomenon back in the day. And the brilliant thing about White Lotus is you're waiting until the end of the season. Who dies?
Who dies?
Who's the floating body?
I mean, that's a brilliant red herring because the truth is, it's not a who done it or it's not a why done it or who got it done to them. Really, that's just a fabulous conduit for Mike to use his extraordinary powers as a kind of social satirist,
social comment,
an excavator of the human condition. This series is very different to previous series. I think he's expanded his reach, his ambition as an artist. It was really, he dove into existential issues. I mean, yes, it's rich people who are coming to rent spiritual growth in many instances. But my character, he's not interested at all in anything spiritual or enlightened. He's slumming it by staying in this hotel. They normally rent a mansion on an island. But
you're spiraling. I said spiraling at the beginning.
Delivers to him the greatest spiritual journey that anybody's ever had in the season of White Lotus. And
there's so many guys in our age group who can totally relate to this dad, where things just are falling apart and coming apart, and you can't put it back together.
Well, hopefully there's not that many people who have the utter calamitous catastrophe of being completely wiped out and thinking of murdering their entire family. But you're right. We see ourselves through the prism of someone experiencing the same thing writ large. I think that's true.
Yeah. Jason, I have to ask you just to get serious again, because you mentioned you're a Brit, but you have a lot of affection for America and ties to America.
For many of the principles this country was set up for, and many of the checks and balances built into the Constitution and the government that are currently being dismantled as we speak. Yeah.
And I know you've been advised, be careful about what you say and what you post and so on. But it sounds like I know. too late. But you are concerned, and I hear this from a lot of folks that I talk to overseas. They are very concerned about what's happening here. They see us as
first
the
of
big
all,
brother. The
when I
friend.
speak out about it, sorry to interrupt. So when I speak out
No.
about it, and when I've previously spoken out about it, I used to post much more politically. I don't bother now. I've been persuaded that the social media is just for revolting solipsistic narcissism. So I'm posting interviews with me and stuff. But when I speak out about it, when I think about it, first of all, there is a tide of people go, shut up. What's it got to do with you? You're not American. Well, what America does and what America has done for 75 years is keep world peace and do a lot of phenomenal good in the world. It's done a lot of terrible things also. Every country has. But, these institutions, flawed as they are, NATO, the United Nations, and I have many criticisms of both of those things, have kept world peace. There's enough nuclear weapons around to destroy the world 1 billion times over. AI is a much bigger threat. If those people who don't know about it don't bother looking into it, it will scare and depress you. But those people who are at the heart of it, I've had conversations with them, the founders of DeepMind and Google Brain and other things. The unguardrailed version of what they are releasing could unquestionably destroy the world as we know it. And they are responsible institutions, or trying to be responsible. And we don't know what Iran and China and other non-governmental actors can do and what they're building. And so we need unity and we need leadership more than we've ever needed it before for our own future and for our children's future. So that's as being an outsider. Being an insider, as somebody who works here and loves what this country has stood for and shown the world also, it's a horrifying thing to see how divided it is and how those central planks of what kept this country balanced, those checks and balances, are just being dismantled. Someone has come in with a sledgehammer and gone, fine, it's always been done this way, but it's a bit like money. Money's not a real thing. Money is a belief system. And so it says on it, I promise to pay the bearer, that it only works when we all buy into it. Same with Bitcoin, only works when you all buy into it. And democracy only works when you all buy into it. When someone comes in and doesn't buy into it and destroys it, like with a bulldozer, we have no idea what's coming. And what's happened in the last 100-odd days has been shocking to everybody on all sides. It's shocking to many, many Republican friends of mine and Republican representatives I was able to talk to this last weekend. And they are not speaking out. And they're not speaking out because they're fearful of being primaried out of their job.
But they express concerns privately.
Many people, and their staff did too, but they'll be primaried out of position. This is an administration full of loyalists, and if you're not a loyalist and don't pretend to be, you will no longer be inside the tent, and this is people's living and livelihood. And so it reminds me a lot of the death of Stalin, which was a broad social satire, but many of the situations I'm seeing paralleled here today, and it's truly terrifying.
And the film Words of War also, I think, it has to be a reminder to people about what we're dealing with the Russians, and that this has been building for many, many years, and what Putin has been doing has been building for many, many years. And this is the sort of the beginning stages of it. This is the preview of
this is his playbook. The playbook he used to tell the Russian people lies about why they needed to invade Chechnya and what the Chechnyans were is identical to the playbook he used in Ukraine. And Anna Politkovskaya, was the first person to tell Russians that, and they listened. They were interested. And one of the other problems in today's world, in America and in Britain, is that we only listen to people who tell us what we want to hear. And that those august institutions that have been around for a century, that will only print when they've got 3 independent sources of corroboration, the faith in them has been so terribly undermined, not just by this White House, but by other autocrats and right-leaning individuals and left-leaning individuals around the world, that the people doing the great work, that telling the truth to the people, putting their lives on the line and certainly their livelihoods here, are not even being listened to or believed. And it's an extremely worrying. Worrying is a horrible euphemistic understatement. It's a terrifying situation to be in.
No, and I talk about this and the importance of the free press all the time on this show, and you kind of come across as self-righteous and on a soapbox and so on. But I mean, if you're
not on the ground in Europe, Jim. Let me tell you, I was watching one of our institutional shows, Newsnight. It's a show that's on every night on 10:30 weekdays on the BBC, and they have serious journalists on it. And unlike in this country, government ministers and the Prime Minister will always submit themselves to questions from quite aggressive journalists often.
They should.
And just a month or two ago, there was the ex-head of MI6, our foreign service, the equivalent of your CIA, talking very seriously on a mainstream news program, not some fringe place, about how Europe needs to get their army together because we could defeat Russia in a ground war, but we need to have a single leader. And I was thinking, am I really watching a show on nightly news about how we might be in a ground war with Russia? Where did that come
Right.
from? Well, it came from President Trump having parroted President Putin's talking points about why he invaded Ukraine just the day before, and Europe realizing they were being abandoned, and NATO was being abandoned, and the thing that had held the world at peace was possibly being abandoned, and we had to think for ourselves, not just, hey, we have a discussion about budget and you need to spend, no, that possibly the world order was being ripped up without any sense for what would replace it.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I personally am a little suspicious of this peace process, because how do you have a real peace process if Zelensky does not have a full seat at the table? He has been having discussions with Trump, and apparently they have this minerals deal and so on. But J.D. Vance apparently was out today in an interview with CNBC saying, well, the war is going to be going on for a long time. It's not going to be ending anytime soon. And, you just get the sense, at just about every turn that, it's advantage Putin when it comes to how the Trump White House is dealing with this.
It's as if he's writing the White House's press releases almost every day.
Yeah.
And then that grotesque scene where Vance and Trump bullied Zelensky like they were playground bullies. He's not wearing a suit. His country's at war. He's a symbol of his country. Who cares if he's wearing a tie? People are getting slaughtered. There are graves. There are, torture. There's all kinds of things that no one in the West can imagine happening to them, but happens. And it's happening with irresponsible words.
Yeah, well, one of the brilliant things about social media is that after that happened, after that shameful exchange occurred, there were all these pictures of Prime Minister Churchill, at the White House with FDR not wearing a suit. So come on, give me a break, guys.
But it was a planned ambush. It's a very scary time. But there are still in this country many noble people, many Republicans. It's a party that has stood for and done great things in the past, and it's time to speak up. It's not time to hide.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I really appreciate your time. I mean, the film is brilliant. You're brilliant as always. And it's just a treat to get to sit down with you and talk to you about all of this, because, I'm glad that you were able to share so much of what your thinking is behind all of these subjects, because Americans need to hear this. They need to hear from the outside world. It just can't be voices screaming at each other.
Well, I'm an outsider and I'm an insider. I have an American daughter, and most of my work has been here. I pay my taxes here, so I have the right to a voice. When people say, shut up, you're an actor, I want to go, there's a reality star in the Oval Office, so actors are allowed to speak out.
And as we know, reality TV is not reality. So there's that as well.
That's for sure.
And he's a bit detached from it. But Jason, great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Best of luck with the movie. Words of War with Jason Isaacs. Thanks so much, Jason.
Well, I don't know how to get out of this thing now. What is that? I've never been on, what is it? Yard Stream?
StreamYard, yes. That was the great Jason Isaacs. Just terrific. A little later on the program, I'm going to have Matt Friend on with me. Matt was with Jason Isaacs over the weekend at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And Matt's going to be joining us to talk about, he's got some shows here this weekend. And in case you haven't seen him before, I mean, maybe you've been living in a cave. He's an occasional guest on my show. And so we're going to get a sense of how Matt is doing. That's going to be happening in just a little bit. But first, I have another special treat. I'm really excited about this. My former colleague, Suzanne Malveaux, who is an anchor and correspondent, White House correspondent at CNN for many years. She's been doing some reporting in Ukraine. And so this is just the perfect guest to come in after Jason Isaacs, who's starring in this film about just the downward trend of democracy in Russia. And there's Suzanne right there. Hey, Suzanne, great to see you.
Hi, Jim. It's great to see you too. Congratulations on this.
I'm doing a thing here, Congrats to you as well.
Yeah,
it's great to catch up with you.
Yes, likewise, Jim. I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. And, we just had the great Jason Isaacs on, and it's amazing how, he's done films for all these years, and then he does a TV show, The White Lotus, and it blows up. And now everybody wants to talk to him. Everybody wants a piece of him. And he has so many brilliant thoughts. But I mean, what he really shared that I thought was interesting was his thoughts about Russia and what has been taking place with Ukraine and how it ties back to Putin's aggression in Chechnya, and the attacks on the press that just happened over years and years. And Suzanne, you know that all too well because you worked at the White House during the Bush administration, the Obama administration, and so on. But you just came back from Ukraine, or you're there now. I think you just came back from Ukraine What was your reporting assignment there like, and what did you pick up on?
So how much time do we have, Jim?
As much time as you'd like.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, first of all, I ended up in Ukraine through the International Women's Media Foundation. It's an organization. I'm co-chair of the board and the Howard Buffett Foundation. They provided a grant to go to Ukraine and on a reporting assignment to mentor young female journalists. And it's a 2-week trip. There are 3 trips. I went on the second one, just got back on Wednesday. And so it was my 3rd time in Ukraine. Believe it or not, Jim, I know it's going to age me, but it was back in '98 was the first time I was in Ukraine with then First Lady Hillary Clinton. She had gone to Russia and 6 former Soviet republics, including Ukraine. A different time altogether.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I mean, peaceful time. And her mission at the time was to really bolster Ukraine and some of these other republics so that they could have NATO membership, and also they were just budding democracies. And so that was the first trip. Fast forward to May 2022 for CNN. I was there 3 months into the war and stationed in Lviv. Had an amazing opportunity to really capture that moment in time where you had so many thousands of Ukrainians who were heading from Poland, from the west, going into Lviv, trying to find their husbands and their sons and their loved ones and figure out what they had salvaged. And then you had thousands of people coming from the east who essentially were escaping warfare and were trying to reestablish their lives in some way. So Lviv was really a central point where you had this vast majority of people who had just incredible stories about resilience and determination and where they were. But that was just 3 months into the war, Jim. So we're talking now like 3 years. And this reporting trip really opened some eyes for me. There is, first of all, a sense of the whole people, the resilience of the people, ordinary folks, Jim. You got people on the front lines fighting, obviously, for the last 3 years. But you have all of these ordinary folks who are just picking up and trying to do what they can. So 2 quick stories, if I can. One of them is they call themselves the Combat Witches of Bucha. Okay, the Combat Witches of Bucha. And this is an all-female unit, volunteer. They are out of Bucha, Ukraine, which you might recall was like just a devastating massacre of civilians, of children, of prisoners of war, torture, rape, the whole thing, mass graves, and just horrific. So these are suburban moms from Bucha who decided that there is a way to express their grief, their grit, their rage by joining this volunteer force. And they have trained themselves with the help of the military to shoot down drones. So I got a chance to meet this unit, and it was absolutely amazing to see these suburban moms with this artillery aimed, and they do these shifts, 24-hour shifts. I met a similar group, Jim, of men who were also perched on the rooftops. This is now in Kyiv, and they sit there overnight. They've got these antiquated, quite frankly, weapons that are defense weapons, and they are aimed at fighting and shooting down these drones. The people I met, Jim, 2 Supreme Court justices. If you can believe that, can you just imagine in our country, right? 2 Supreme Court justices, an opera singer, an engineer, and a jeweler. These guys, that's their day job, right? That's the day job. And for various reasons, whether it's their profession or their medical situation, they were not allowed to join into the military forces on the front lines. So nevertheless, they wanted to do something. So they all volunteered to be a part of this unit. And I met them, on the rooftop, poised and ready to strike down the drones if, in fact, they get through the various defense systems that the military actually offers. So just incredible.
And I understand we have a little video of this. Let's show that.
Judge of Supreme Court.
Judge of the Supreme Court.
Vitaly Dolphin, Judge.
Another Supreme Court justice.
I'm an opera singer.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, it's an opera singer.
An
opera singer.
Yeah.
I thought you were joking.
No.
Excellent.
We're now here in this Kyiv neighborhood, residential neighborhood. This is the worst, biggest attack in the city this year. They just got pounded with multiple missiles and drones that killed at least 8 people and wounding close to 80. This is Independence Square. It is really a sacred place for the Ukrainians. This is where they have thousands and thousands of flags that are planted here for those who have lost their lives, given their lives in the war for their independence. And they come from all over the world. The Ukrainians say they have no idea how many are actually here, but they represent soldiers from everywhere, including the United States.
Wow. I mean, Suzanne, I mean, it's incredible that you were there when that attack occurred. I mean, and this was after the peace process was supposed to begun between the U.S. and Russia and Ukraine. And I mean, what is your sense of it? I mean, do they have confidence in this peace process? It seems to me some of it's for show, and some of it is because Trump said he would end the war on day one, and he obviously hasn't done that. But I mean, I just wonder what you're hearing on the ground there. Are they suspicious of this? Are they cynical, or do they have hope that maybe that they can pull this off?
Sure. Well, I have to tell you, Jim, I think there's a sense of war fatigue, and there's a warrior culture among the Ukrainians, but there's definitely a sense of they are so done with this, and they've adapted in some ways that it's hard to imagine. There's air raid sirens that go off in Kyiv as well on a regular basis, particularly overnight, and people almost like ignore it or put it in the background because they say that they have to live their lives, right? They have to go on. They can't let this disrupt ordinary life. They don't have a lot of confidence in the process, in this peace process, but they do believe, for the most part, that their President Zelensky is doing the right thing, and that he is the person that can usher in a change. The main thing that I keep hearing from folks is, first of all, a big thank you to the Americans. I didn't meet anybody, Jim, who was upset by the Americans. They seem to have, and several people talked about it, actually separating President Trump from many Americans. They believe that many Americans very much support what they're doing, and I heard nothing but gratitude. But the second thing is that they know that they're on their own, and they feel like they're the only ones that are going to be able to do this. And what they've asked for is, moving forward, is they said, we will put our bodies on the line, we will shed our blood. What we want the US and Europeans to do is provide us with the resources to shut down the war. Democracy, of course, they're fighting for that, but that is not the primary goal. According to folks I talked to, it is stopping this war. And so nobody believes, well, I can't say nobody, but there are a lot of people who say Crimea is not on the table, that Crimea is Ukraine. Those are the people who share their culture, their families, their identity, their faiths, that they are not going to give up that land. They're not going to give that up because that is Ukraine. But they still believe that there has got to be a way, if it's overwhelming force by the United States or the Europeans, to go ahead and secure the border, shut down the war, and then set up something like the DMZ that we see with North Korea. If that is possible, that is what people are asking for. What they're not asking for, and they make it very clear when I tell you about the combat witches of Bucha, or these guys, the Supreme Court justices on the rooftops.
Yeah.
They say, we're willing to give up our lives. We're not asking anybody else to do that, but we need the resources to shut down the war.
Wow. Well, Suzanne, it's incredible reporting. I mean, I can't believe you were there on the ground when something like this occurred. And I'm glad for your safety as well. And it's so great to be reunited with you and see you again in person.
Yeah,
Suzanne and I remember our ballot bowl days. I mean, this is our
my gosh.
former place back in 2008, I think it was, when Obama and Hillary Clinton were out on the campaign trail.
We traveled the world, Jim.
We did.
We did. And, I mean, I guess those were times when it was like, it was fun. There was a sense of, purpose and also levity as well. So I know these are really, really serious times. And thank you for, having me on to be able to discuss this. There's another group that's going to be headed out in June through this program that I'm a part of. And it's great to just like see this through, you know. I feel like I need to go back.
Well, check out Suzanne and her account on Instagram. There's lots of videos there. You can see her reporting there. Any other places where we can see the video and your reporting on the ground there? Because, I mean, it's just fantastic what you were able to uncover and reveal.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm Facebook, Instagram, website, the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
Social media, Jim. I'm working on it.
You got to do it. I know. We got to do it or else we go away.
Yeah.
Suzanne, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful to see you again. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks. You as well. You as well. Well, I mean, you know, that's one of the, I sometimes affectionately call this my friends and family show, because I get to see folks who are like old friends or old relatives. And I shouldn't say old in regards to some of the people I'm talking about, because I mean, as you can see, when you see Suzanne on camera, she looks like she did back in the day on CNN. She's incredible. But in the meantime, as I was saying earlier, there's this guy, I don't know, maybe we've heard of him before. He occasionally pops up in your Instagram feed as well. Speaking of Instagram, he does this impersonation of this person that we know. For some reason, he hasn't come up with an impersonation of yours truly here. But let's bring him up. It's our friend. It's my friend. It's your friend. It's Matt friend. Is Matt here? Is he in the chat? Can we bring?
How
is he
are
in the
you?
Signal chat? There he is.
How's it going?
Matt, did we catch you in the middle of a run to Starbucks or Tate? What's happening here?
Well, this is how you do social media. You go organic on the street. There's better lighting outside. I figured I would come outside instead of being a dark hotel room. And also, you know, I think a little movement is good for the algorithm. So I'm just trying to
I don't want to see the inside of your hotel room, but that's okay anyway.
Well, I mean, Jim, what are you, Rudy Giuliani and Sacha Baron Cohen's TV show? I mean, of
That's
course
a good point.
not. Yeah. How are you? What's going on?
Matt, it's great to see you.
You too. I have
buddy,
to say, I love doing your congratulations on the Substack, because, you know, it's becoming a thing now. Like, people are talking about trying to get booked on Jim Acosta's Substack.
How about that?
So,
I mean, Jason Isaacs.
It's a hard thing to achieve. So this is a big deal. Second time on.
You might say it's weird, wild stuff.
It's some weird, wild stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like Carson.
You know, the news is so crazy. I said, I'm not saying the Justice Department is bad with names and private information, but they actually forwarded the termination letter to Tim Walz, and then they forwarded it again to Christoph Waltz. So it's kind of never ending here. Not really sure what's going on.
And they could have just put it in Signal.
Michael, they have to figure this stuff out immediately. Yeah.
Oh man, that's good stuff. So you're in town. You're doing some shows.
Yes,
I don't want to bury the lead, but a little something happened at last night's show. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, so I'm doing 5 shows here in DC. A couple of them are sold out. We have couple more going. And then last night, you know, it's a very interesting moment in our society and comedy more specifically. As you know, there was no comedic performer at this year's White House Correspondents' Dinner, which I've been very opinionated on. I think it was a mistake. Can you hear me? Yeah, not
Absolutely.
to have comedy.
That's a huge mistake.
Because I just feel like the second we are unable to lose the ability to laugh at ourselves, then we're in a real, you know, Russian communist situation. So basically, so last night I was alerted by the manager of this club that he said someone's fishy and suspicious. And I'm like, okay, I don't know why you're telling me this. I'm about to go on and perform, but okay. So then I go on, then like a minute into it, this guy in a sparkly jacket and a red MAGA hat stands up, and then he moves from the third row to the front row, and like clearly disturbing the show. Like it's all on tape, and I'm going to try to get it to you quickly. And then he just starts kind of talking, and I'm like thinking, oh my God, am I going to get Chris Rock, Will Smith slapped right now? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And then I'm just starting to kind of make jokes. I'm like, you're like Marjorie Taylor Greene in the State of the Union, you know, interrupting. You're like that old Democrat. You're like that old Democrat guy waving his cane. So I'm trying to make it bipartisan. And then I'm like doing shit. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna just I'm like, we're gonna get you out of here. We're gonna throw you out like a dog. Like I'm just kind of like trying to be funny, doing my Trump impression, and then
Get him out.
and then he's kind of reaching into his pockets, and I'm like, and I'm kind of like nervous. I'm like, what's he doing? And then he's like popping pills. It's like almost like a sketch. So he's popping
Weird.
pills, and then the guy's just like kind of flipping me off, like raising his fist in the air, and then after a few minutes, I'm just basically like, you know what, we got to get you to the back or where you were sitting for. You got to get out of here. And then he stands up and he's like, you want to arrest me? You want to arrest me? You want to call the cop? Basically, it was such a whole ordeal. And then until he stopped, I actually took out my Mitch McConnell glasses and just froze. And I said, I'm going to just stop here. And I just went like this.
Just freeze the show like Mitch McConnell.
I just froze the show. Exactly. And then after a few minutes, I mean, the guy was, I guess, taken out, but I mean, it was definitely troubling. And you
Doesn't
know what?
he
It's
understand
interesting
this is comedy? Like, don't people understand they go to a comedy show?
Well, in addition, I made a clear point, which is I don't want to hear any bullshit of getting kicked out of a show because he's a Republican. If he was wearing a Harris Walls camouflage hat acting that way, I would have done the same goddamn thing. So
Exactly.
the point is, don't be a psychopath and don't interrupt shows. So the people are going to try to make these partisan. So yeah, I mean, it's a crazy.
It's a bipartisan,
so crazy.
nonpartisan thing. Yeah, don't be
this
a
world
dick.
we live in. It's so crazy. It's insane.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like I performed in Red Naples, Florida, to a probably 95% MAGA crowd, and they were loving it and able to actually have a good time. So there is hope for America that people can like be sensible and normal. But then again, there's a lot of weirdos out there.
And I might be coming to one of the shows this weekend. And
well, if you can get a ticket, I'm not sure if you can. But I'm kidding.
If you can sneak me in, it's sort of like getting into the
Jim. We're going to sneak you. We can spoiler alert, but to the Substack fans, we're definitely going to try to reenact. We're not going to try. We're going to reenact that famous Jim Acosta moment with Trump at the White House, where he says, "Jim, you're a sad, nasty, terrible person. You're a dog. You're terrible. Get him out. You are the worst person I've ever seen. Get him out,
There might be a
please.
struggle over the microphone, but anyway.
Get him. Exactly. We're going to move the mic. So I'd like to just reenact all these insane moments. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for thinking about my
I'll give you your
work in this
PTSD,
field
right?
is insane. But anyway.
Well, you've definitely had some insane. I mean, like the Jim Acosta like memoir would be a riveting read.
It would. Well, as it just so happens, Matt, I did write one, but that's okay. Anyway, I won't.
Well, I think the newer edition. Yeah,
an updated edition. I know.
As he's in his DILF status, if you know what I mean, folks.
But wait a minute, hold on a second. Because we had Jason Isaacs on earlier. You ran into Jason Isaacs this past weekend.
I did.
What was that like? He's like a huge star now.
Yeah, he's incredible. The Correspondence Weekend, it was actually really funny. There's a Don Rickles line, and he would go into a room. This is like prime showbiz. It's Sinatra and Carson and all these people. He would look around and he would say, "It's clear I'm the biggest name here." And I go to the Correspondence Weekend, and I actually was thinking to myself, this is not a good sign. I think I'm actually the biggest name here. I'm like, this is like not a joke, because there used to be like John Hamm and Chris Pine, and all these big people. And then I'm like, what happened this year? But Jason Isaacs was there to save the day. So he legitimately was the biggest name there. And
Dude,
Jason.
I mean, I used to run into Reese Witherspoon and Jane Fonda and Diane Keaton.
I know.
It was the place to be.
We had a fun moment where I saw Jason at this party, and then we reenacted the scene from the Lotus where he poisons the family. And
very good. I was hoping it was that scene and not this other scene that. Anyway.
Yeah, not he played the older brother, and I played the younger brother, and we went into the bathroom and completed the scene. It was.
Oh my gosh! Well, what happens on Correspondence Dinner Weekend stays in Correspondence Dinner Weekend.
Is there anything better than natural light? By the way, I mean, you know this. You're taping your show, and
it's a good look. I think it's a good look. The hair looks good. And it's your story last night is reminding me of my time out on the campaign trail when I would go to these Trump rallies. And people would come up to you and scream at you and call you a traitor and do all this other stuff. But then there are also people who are like, "Oh, thank you. I can't admit this in public, but thank you." And they want to take a selfie and so on. So Matt, don't let this get you down. The show must go on.
You know what? The show goes on. I mean, I stayed on. I did 65 more minutes. And I kept
Wow.
rattling off. You know, I did a whole segment too, which was jokes that should have been made at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I can share one of them if you like.
Please.
Everybody, let me just say, to clean this up, this is Barack Obama, and I have to say, Jim Acosta is an exemplary American. He shows that whether you are from a red state or a blue state, Jim Acosta's Substack is for these United States. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. I'm Jim Acosta, and I approve this message. Matt, this was supposed to be Fuck It Friday. You and I were supposed to do Fuck It Friday, but we didn't really do it. But
I mean, what can we say for Fuck It Friday? What could we say? I mean, I'm just trying to think.
It's almost Fuck You Friday to the guy that was trying to give you a hard time last night. But
anyway. I gotta say, I mean, the timing of Jim Acosta creating his own Substack is it's actually like divine intervention. As Trump says, there's somebody up there watching over us, somebody bigger than all of us. Don't you love when Trump says that, by the way? Don't you there's no way he actually believes that. What I am so impressed by is that people actually believe that he thinks there's someone higher than all of us. Like, no, he doesn't. It's television.
2 Corinthians. Yeah.
It's like, there's somebody bigger than all of us. Then he's like looking up, and I think he's thinking, and what's bigger than all of us is Rosie O'Donnell. Okay, folks? I'm kidding.
Apparently he wants to be the Pope too. Didn't Lindsey Graham or somebody say he should be the Pope? Can you imagine Trump as the Pope?
Speaking of Fucking Friday, I'll tell you, Lindsey Graham would like to meet me on a Fucking Friday, if you know what I mean.
Oh my God.
That's right. I just went there,
I'm gonna get canceled. God damn it, Matt.
Jim, it's too late. That's the beauty of Substack, baby. You are your own Lord, baby. Come on.
It's
a new world. It's a new world, and Jim Acosta is leading it.
My man, it's great to see you. I know you've got to run, and you've got I don't know more.
One more thing for Substack. You know what's amazing? It's that I like bipartisan comedy. Like I make fun of the libs, as Scott Jennings, as he calls them, the libs. It's like, so, like Bernie Sanders was at Coachella. Imagine you're a 12-year-old influencer just getting high on edibles. Then you just hear, "We are in danger. There is an existential threat to our democracy today." I'm like, why does Bernie always sound like he's conducting a very tiny Jewish orchestra with his hands all the time? I don't know. And then I'm like, someone should just bring out Ted Cruz at Coachella to even it out. Just, it's so great to be here at Coachella. How much do you all love that chaperone? I love chaperone. She just lights my skin on fire. He can make nothing sound cool. Yeah, nothing.
I love it. But to me, a Coachella would not be complete without a Howard Stern.
Right. Well, let me just tell you before we go. Here's what I want to say. I met Jim Acosta in person, and Robin has met a lot of famous people. She wants to have sex with this guy like nobody I've ever seen. I mean, Robin asked me, "Is Jim single?" I said, "Robin, you're crazy." So, Jim, let me ask you this. Who to you, you've done a lot of interviews, who to you do you think has been the most, flirtatious? Who would you say would be the best date that Jim Acosta could have out of anybody he's ever interviewed? And tell me, who?
Outside of Matt Friend? I mean, I can't think
outside of Matt Friend. Who would it be?
Elizabeth
would it
Warren,
be, Jim?
perhaps? I don't know.
We call her Pocahontas Acosta. That's her name.
Matt.
Yeah.
All right. So, Matt, you're going to be at the Arlington. Should we say where you're going to be? I don't know. Maybe we should.
Yes. Arlington Draft House. Yeah, I have 4 shows
left.
left.
It was an old porn theater back in the day.
I think it's where Lauren Boebert gets naked and meets up with Kid Rock's nephews when she's not with their uncle. I actually asked on stage last night, I said, can you imagine what the smell of the Uber was like when Kid Rock and Lauren Boebert got into it together? That couldn't have been.
Oh, no. I don't want to think about that at all. Take that straight to the car wash, to the detail shop after that. See, I make Matt laugh every once in a while. It's true.
I said Jim Acosta is literally Ron Burgundy now. It's like just fucking Friday, who cares?
Just plug it.
Fuck it. But yeah, the shows are selling out. So tickets at mattfriend.com. Come around if you're around in Arlington. Get your tickets tonight and tomorrow.
Right. And if you do, Matt will freeze in front of you.
Texas next weekend. So mattfriend.com. It'll be a lot of fun.
Matt in Texas.
Yeah.
Man, oh man. All right. Well, bring your 6-shooters with you.
Seriously.
All right, buddy. Well, good to see you. We'll see you. I'll see you this weekend.
Good luck. Thanks.
Thanks, pal. All right. That's the great Matt Friend. Oh, my goodness. Okay. For everybody out there who was offended by anything that Matt Friend said, I just want to, this is where I add the disclaimer that the opinions advanced by Matt Friend are those of Matt Friend and his alone. They do not represent the views of this program. All right. So one last thing. I have to mention this because I got to get going here and it's the end of the show. But again, I just want to say thanks to Jason Isaacs, the great Jason Isaacs. Wow. I mean, I just hope everybody enjoyed that interview because he was fascinating. He was brilliant. For people who crap on actors in Hollywood and think that they're bubbleheads and they don't know anything. I mean, clearly that is not the case with Jason Isaacs. He was incredible. Go see his movie Words of War. It's out in theaters in a couple of selected cities this weekend, and then it expands to other cities across the country next weekend. It's a very powerful film. And I also want to thank Suzanne Malveaux, my former colleague from my old place. She is out there doing it still to this day. Terrific reporting out there. And of course, my thanks to Matt Friend. And if you're out there seeing Matt Friend this weekend, be nice because I might be in the crowd and I might have something to say to you if you're not nice to my buddy Matt Friend. In the meantime, we have to end with an edition of the Dear Leader Files. I'm sure you've heard about this. Trump's dictator birthday bash. The planning is already underway. The Associated Press reports that detailed Army plans for a potential military parade on Donald Trump's birthday in June call for more than 6,600 soldiers, at least 150 vehicles, 50 helicopters, 7 bands, and possibly a couple thousand civilians, the Associated Press has learned. The planning documents obtained by the AP are dated April 29th and 30th and have not been publicly released. To folks in Washington who think you can suppress information, when it comes to Donald Trump, sorry, it's just not going to happen. They represent the Army's most recent blueprint for its long-planned 250th anniversary festival on the National Mall. No, Trump is not at 250 years old, although he looks to be that case sometimes. It's the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, and that's what's being celebrated on the National Mall. But of course, Trump wants to hold that hostage, take it hostage, and make it his birthday celebration, something straight out of North Korea and Kim Jong-un. I mean, folks, again, just to end on some final thoughts here to end the week. Did anybody vote for this? I mean, and Matt did mention Elon Musk earlier, unless I've cut that out of this program. Elon Musk was supposed to be rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse here in Washington. And I mean, talk about just a complete contradiction of that, mission statement in every way, shape, form possible. If Donald Trump is going to have a dictator-like birthday bash here in Washington, D.C., I'm sorry, you can pay for it yourself. We, the taxpayers of the United States of America, do not want to pay for 6,600 soldiers, 150 vehicles, 50 helicopters, 7 bands, and possibly a couple thousand civilians. Meanwhile, by the way, 50 helicopters, I'm sorry, this airspace, it is not going to, think about recent events. The airspace is probably not a good place for that around Washington, D.C. But at the same time, my goodness, my God, the American people do not need to shell out the millions and millions of dollars that are going to be required for this kind of Kim Jong-un palooza here in Washington, D.C. I'm sorry. I just think that that's a gross waste of taxpayer funds. And by the way, does Donald Trump really want to call attention to the fact that he's getting another year older? Isn't he now at that point where he and people in MAGA world were ridiculing Joe Biden for his age? Again, the hypocrisy is astounding. Again, thanks everybody for watching this week. Had a lot of great guests. My goodness, Jason Isaacs from White Lotus today, Sean Penn, Eric Swalwell yesterday, all of the wonderful guests we've had on all this week. Want to thank them all. And somehow Duke, I swear I've not been giving him little doggy downers or anything along those lines. Duke has not tried to make an appearance all week long. I don't know where Duke is right now, but he has just learned to be very quiet and very well behaved. And so the only glimpse you're going to get of Duke is from my mug. And there he is right there. But anyway, at the end of this week on this TGIF Fuck It Friday, slide one more of those one last time. I want to thank everybody for watching. Still reporting from Washington, I'm Jim Acosta. Thanks for watching, everybody.